Enter Issei Hyodo and his friends Matsuda and Motohama, who all attend a previously all-girls high school. There, they find themselves quite unpopular with the girls at Kuo Academy, even though they are one of the only few boys around. One of their favorite pastimes is to peep on girls, and while checking out the kendo club, they get caught, but only Issei gets punished as the others run away. Afterwards, Ria's Gremory, the crimson red-haired top idol of the academy and president of the occult research club, discovers Issei and asks her vice president, Akino Himejima, about his identity. Eventually, as Issei dreams of having a girlfriend, another girl named Yuma Amano shyly asks him out, much to his excitement, so of course he agrees. Meanwhile, a girl working for Ria's keeps tabs on him and reports back. Regardless, Issei and Yuma go on a date, and at the end of it, she suddenly asks Issei to perish for her sake. She then reveals herself as Rainier, a fallen angel, and she promptly finishes him. After Rainier ends a satisfied Issei as he finally witnessed some melons, he sees a vision of Ria's seemingly being summoned beside him. The next day, Issei wakes up at home and assumes the incident last night was just a dream, so he resumes his normal life. However, when Issei asks his friends about Yuma, they reply with having no recollection about who she is. At the same time, he discovers he has gained the ability to see in the dark and also developed increased strength at night. Confused, he heads home where he encounters another fallen angel, Donasik, who attacks him. Just as Donasik is about to finish off Issei, Rias and the girls intervene by saving him. The next morning, Issei discovers he and Rias are together in his bedroom. Reassuring that the dreams were real, she introduces herself as a devil and his new master. At the same time, his family finds out that Issei has become a man, and Rias explains to him that she used her magic to heal his wounds as she gets ready for school, and she also reveals that she is still a virgin. Regardless, at Kuo Academy, the two end up walking together much to the dismay of everyone else. During class, the school prince, Yudo Kiba, is sent to fetch Issei and leads him to the occult research club, where he meets the popular mascot girl, Kameko Tuju, and the club's long-haired black ponytailed devil, Vice President Akino Himejima. As the club welcomes him in, Rias briefs Issei on the current situation with angels, fallen angels, and devils, and the duties now assigned to him in this three-way battle for dominance. She also explains how Yuma was actually real, even though his friends don't remember her due to her erasing their memories. Nevertheless, Issei is now reborn as a member of House Ria's Gremory, a high-ranking devil. As such, he is tasked with his first assignment and speedily completes a delivery as he's motivated to have a harem. Afterwards, he heads to another mission involving an otaku who wanted a devil to cosplay with. After completing the task, Issei encounters another fallen angel named Kala Warner, but he uses his sacred gear to transform his hand into an armored dragon arm and defeats her. Shortly afterwards, Rias warns Issei that since he has revealed the sacred gear, he will be sought after by the fallen angels. The next day, Issei encounters a blonde beauty named Asha Argento, who happens to be a nun. As he helps her out find her way around the town, she reveals her powers by healing a wounded boy. As thanks for helping her, she invites him to accompany her to the church, but he refuses and Asha still invites him to visit her whenever. Back with Rias, she informs him that even just setting foot inside a church would cause trouble for both gods and devils. She also sternly warns him that he could get devil purged, which would leave him utterly annihilated with no hope of surviving. At the occult club, Akino reveals that a stray devil has been spotted in town, so the group assembles and teleports to the supposed location. The stray devil then appears, who's named Visor. Visor attacks using cannons from body parts that can't be shown on YouTube, so go use your imagination. Nevertheless, Rias starts explaining the roles of the other devils, starting with Yuto as a knight, Kaneko as her rook, Akino as the queen who finishes a Visor, and finally herself as the king. After the battle, Issei asks what about him, and she replies by saying he's a pawn, the lowest ranking of them all. Issei then heads off to another assignment, but is met with an unannounced visitor, ruthless exorcist Fried Selzen, who introduces himself and swiftly attacks him. However, Asha is revealed to be working for Fried, who witnesses the incident and attempts to stop Fried from ending Issei. Regardless, Issei attacks Asha as well, causing Issei to finally get up to protect her. Suddenly, a demon magic circle appears and the gang shows up to rescue him. Unfortunately, they leave Asha behind much to the dismay of Issei. Back at the occult club, Rias heals Issei up and reveals that Fried is actually a stray angel, much like a stray devil, with the exception that they lower themselves to become the servants of fallen angels. Now realizing how truly weak he is, Issei attempts to get stronger and goes to train in a park, but he encounters Asha once again. Afterwards, they grab a bite to eat at a burger joint and proceed to go on a date where Issei even wins her a stuffed animal. Asha also fully heals the rest of his wounds, and she begins telling her story of her past, where she became an excommunicated nun from the church due to her healing a wounded devil. With no friends anymore, Issei vows to be her friend regardless of him being a devil. Suddenly, the two are interrupted by Rainier, who's on a mission to bring back a runaway Asha. As Rainier and Issei attempt to battle, he gets easily defeated, and Rainier reveals that Asha's twilight healing is even more rare than Issei's sacred gear. As such, Asha agrees to go with Rainier to prevent Issei from being injured any further. After reporting what happened to Riaz, he asks to be released from House Gremory, but she explains that him being a pawn gives him the special ability called promotion, allowing him to gain all the powers of the others. Regardless, Issei still heads out to free Asha alone, but both Kiba and Kaneko follow him after having understood Riaz's message. As Riaz and Akino deal with a fallen angel called Mitelt, the others storm into a sanctuary containing Freed. There, the trio battles Freed, and Kiba unleashes his sword of Holy Eraser, which devours light. Meanwhile, other fallen angels begin to appear alongside Mitelt, causing Akino to transform, where she places a barrier to prevent the angels from escaping. Back in the sanctuary, Issei finds Asha chained to a cross, where Rainier is about to complete her ritual of stealing Asha's sacred gear, Twilight Healing. Rainier then removes Asha's sacred gear and puts it onto herself, claiming she will now become the supreme fallen angel. Regardless, the trio continue their assault towards Asha, but when Issei finally gets to the top, Rainier unchains her as she falls onto his arms as Asha is seemingly soon ended. Suddenly, Kaneko and Kiba protects him from an attack as he attempts to carry Asha to safety. They then urge him to hurry and escape, but a tearful Issei asks them to promise that they'll call him Issei from now on, since they're all friends. As Issei escapes out of the basement of the sanctuary, Asha thanks him for everything before perishing. Rainier then mocks him by asking why a devil is making a confession inside a church. Meanwhile, Riaz becomes angry and easily dispatches the other fallen angels. Back at the sanctuary, Issei channels the power of his emotions, but is still no match for Rainier. However, with his resolve stronger than ever, devil wings appear on his back, shocking Rainier. Finally, he grabs onto an escaping Rainier and punches her out of the window. After the ordeal, it's revealed that Riaz is actually the ruined princess and empress of Annihilation. She then explains to Rainier that Issei's sacred gear is not just a simple one, but one that is able to allow him to transcend the power of God and Satan momentarily. A defeated Rainier then changes into her human form and begs Issei to help her, but to no avail, only for her to still be ended by Riaz. Fortunately, they reclaim Asha's twilight healing, and Riaz ends up reviving her as a bishop under the Gremory household. The next day, Issei asks Riaz if she's going to add any more pawns, just like in chess, but she explains that with his potential, she had to use all 8 pieces to revive him. Meanwhile, Asha gets jealous as she witnesses how close the two get. The next day, confused Issei is wondering why a female's garments is laying out in the club room. Kaneko then clubs him with a lobster, claiming it's a crime for trying to steal undies. He then finds out that Asha has been living in the club's room as Riaz finds a place for her to stay. She then forces Issei to get physically stronger, so she helps him with a new training regimen in the morning. Asha then arrives, and Riaz explains that Asha will now be living in his place as Asha really wanted to live with him. At school, it's also revealed that Asha will begin attending the same school and be placed in Issei's class. She quickly attracts other classmates, including jealousy from Matsuda and Motohama. The following night, Issei decides to take on a job for Asha, and it turns out that a gigantic man wishes to turn into a magical girl. Unfortunately, he's unable to receive a pact, so he thinks over it during gym class, causing him accidentally sleep in the infirmary with Riaz. Knowing Issei's lecherous desires, Riaz offers her body to him in exchange for a pact. That night, Riaz accompanies him on his next job, helping a foreign exchange student named Susan inside a samurai outfit to retrieve her notebook. She also requests help to attract her love. After the unusual meetup with her love, Issei successfully completes the job. He tries to get his reward from Riaz, but loses his chance when the other members arrive. Riaz instead gives him a hug, shocking everyone. The story continues with our trio of devils at the occult club, where Riaz decides it's time for Issei and Asha to get their own servant familiars. However, Shitoru Sona, the school's student body president, and her council appear, where it's revealed that they too are devils and demons of another faction. Since only one group is allowed to enter the world of familiars per month, the 2 factions decide to compete in sports to see who gets to go first. Nevertheless, they begin with a normal tennis match where all the boys gawk over the girls, yet the match heats up as Riaz and Sona begin to use their magic to enhance their moves. As such, they end up destroying much of the equipment, leading to a draw. Thus, they decide to settle the draw with a dodgeball match poised for the next night. As night falls, the groups convene at the gym and start an epic match of dodgeball. With magic finally unleashed, clothes get destroyed and flexibility is all over the court. Eventually, Issei gets injured, so the group decide to avenge him, where they bring home the favor of victory to the Occult Research Club. As winners, they head to get their familiars under the guise of the full moon. There, they meet the familiar master, the Taoji, who first shows them a Giga Chad familiar, much to Issei's displeasure. Regardless, they continue on in the woods, where they encounter an extremely rare sprite dragon. Suddenly, a slime spews out goo and starts destroying clothes, causing Issei to want to make the slime his familiar and uses Asha to protect it. Unfortunately, he gets knocked out by the sprite dragon, who has taken a liking to Asha, allowing her to form a pact with the dragon, which she promptly names Rasei. Afterwards, as the day ends, Rias notes that Issei still has a long way to go. While in a dream, Issei finds himself getting married to Rias, much to his surprise. However, right before he's about to kiss Rias, his inner dragon begins to speak to him, wanting to say hello to the partner who he will be fighting alongside with. Back at school, Matsuda and Motohama asks if his dream was of the sexy time type, which Issei denies. They then ask Issei to help introduce them to some girls, but the trio ends up seeking their favorite pastime, so they hide inside the girls' locker room. Unfortunately, Kaneko finds them and proceeds to punish Issei for his acts. Back at the occult club, as Issei gets healed, Asha and Rias tell him that he doesn't have to go through all that trouble, since they can easily help him out with what he wants to see. Meanwhile, Akino notes that although Issei has failed to get any packs, he still ended up pleasing all of his clients that he was summoned to. After school, Issei accidentally encounters Asha in the shower, where she confesses she has a desire to have a deeper relationship with him. Afterwards, in his room, a magic circle suddenly appears and Rias shows up begging him to quickly take her special flower. However, before they could do so, they get interrupted by Grafia Lucifuge, the wife and queen of Rias' brother, Surzex Lucifer, who initially mocks Issei as a lowborn, but Rias is quick to defend him. Rias then gives him a kiss and apologizes before heading out. The next day, Issei and the group are introduced to Riser Phoenix, a pure-blooded upper-class devil, who's to be engaged to Rias, but she refuses to marry him. Grafia then announces that if Rias insists on not marrying Lord Riser, then they may settle the issue with a raiding game, a chess-like match where servants compete in battle. However, Riser mocks Issei's dream of having a harem, leading to him having one of her pieces hit Issei in the stomach. In response, the Gremory and the Phoenix clans organize a ratings game. As such, Rias agreed to fight against Riser in 10 days' time. In the meantime, Issei begins to train in an isolated area under Rias' supervision as they prepare for the raiding game. However, Issei fails in each lesson from everyone and is greatly discouraged. First, he loses to Kiba in sword fighting, then he loses to Akino and Asha in manipulating magic, and finally he loses to Kaneko and gets beaten badly as a result. However, in Lesson 4, he creates a power through visualizing the chests of his intended victims. That night, Issei, in a waterfall mausoleum, tells Rias that he admires her as the best mentor for him. However, he admits that he isn't useful for her and considers himself as the most useless devil of all. He laments that he has always caused her trouble and claims that even though he possesses a sacred gear, it's useless if he is unable to fully use it, and considers himself a total failure for her and starts crying. Rias then figures out that he indeed lacks self-confidence, so she promises him to give him some self-confidence. She afterwards orders him to rest for tonight until he is fully capable again. The next morning, he starts training by using his sacred gear. After boosting 12 times, he creates an aura of energy around himself and throws a powerful beam of red light towards Kiba, which destroys a nearby mountain. Although he quickly tires himself out, Rias, remembering his quotes about how he admired her the way she is, starts to grow affections for him. 1 hour before the match starts, Issei readies himself for battle as he tells Asha that they will always be together. At the occult club, Rias explains that the raiding game is being relayed to the members of both houses, where Sona has volunteered to help broadcast. Grafia then reveals that the great devil Lucifer himself will be watching as well. The group then enters a magic circle, where they get transported to a battlefield, which is coincidentally a replica of Ku Academy. Grafia, now the referee, explains that Rias' home base is in the Occult Research Club room, while Riser's will be the principal's office. As such, pawns will be able to promote if they are able to reach the opposing home base. Kaneko then hands out magical earpieces to use as communication as the game starts. The group then use a map to strategically plan their method of attack. As everyone heads off on their mission, Rias quickly tasks Issei to lay on her lap, causing him to have tears of joy as Asha watches. Rias then explains to Issei that she released some of his locked power and orders him to not hold back against girls. Regardless, Issei's and Kaneko's first opponent includes a Chun-Li lookalike and a couple pawns. Outnumbered, Issei begins to run away until he hits some buttocks and uses his signature dress breaker move. Meanwhile, Akino, the Thunder Princess, utterly wipes out an important foothold. Suddenly, Kaneko is knocked out by Riser's queen. Kaneko then screams in pain as she disappears, causing Issei to angrily challenge Riser's queen, but Akino intervenes and tells him that she'll avenge Kaneko. Meanwhile, Kiba reveals that he has dispatched 3 pieces, making the current remaining servants 9-5 in Riser's favor. Rias then plans to launch a sneak attack on their base with Asha, so Kiba and Issei taunt the Knight of Lord Riser to come out, revealing her name as Carlamine. As the two knights battle, Issei begins to be surrounded by girls. Unfortunately, they're hostile. One of the girls turns out to be Riser's sister and bishop, making his harem very sussy. Nevertheless, Issei starts getting pounded by the knight Isabella, causing him to use dress break, and he finishes her off with dragon shot. Meanwhile, Riser has anticipated that Rias would go for a sneak attack, leading to an earlier than planned battle between the heirs of the houses. As such, Issei's boosted gear evolves due to his emotions, allowing him to absorb Kiba's full power and transfers it into a massive, widespread magical attack, destroying the rest of Riser's pieces except Ravel, his sister. Meanwhile, Akino and Kiba both perish due to the Phoenix clan's hidden treasure that can completely heal any injury instantly. Suddenly, Issei promotes upon entering the enemy headquarters, allowing him to head to the rooftop to assist Rias and Asha. Riser's queen, Yubaluna, launches a direct attack which causes Asha to get knocked out. As Issei continues to boost his power, his body begins to fail him. As he gets up once again, Riser begins to destroy him, where he is unable to fight back. Right before Issei is fully ended, Rias resigns to save him. When Issei wakes up, finding himself passed out on his own bed after the raiding game against Riser and his peerage, he blames himself, knowing that it was his powerlessness that forced Rias to resign. Soon after, Grafia, the ultimate queen, arrives in his home and gives Issei a magic circle that will allow him to attend the Gremory Phoenix engagement party in the underworld. When Issei arrives at the designated area and blatantly crashes the party, Surzex interferes, offering arbitration terms to settle the dispute by hosting a one-on-one battle between Riser and Issei, with Ria's engagement on the line. However, when the battle begins, it is shown that Issei traded his left arm to the dragon that resides within him in exchange for extreme power that will only last for 10 seconds. As such, Issei is able to overpower Riser with his newfound power, but is unable to defeat or deal him critical damage due to the latter's constitution as a phoenix, especially in the brief 10 seconds window he has. However, even after the 10 seconds are up, Issei manages to win when he surprisingly attacks a slightly weakened Riser with holy objects that he had earlier acquired from Asha, causing Riser to experience excruciating spiritual pain. After winning the battle, it is revealed that Surzex would have, if necessary, allowed a griffin to help Issei and Rias escape. Rias then kisses Issei while flying on the griffin. And then we cut to a moment where Rias tells Issei's parents that she plans to move in with him. Issei wakes up only to find himself in an awkward situation with Devil Princess Rias after the ordeal with House Phoenix, but Asha walks in, not wanting to be left out. Regardless, during breakfast, Rias gains permission from Issei's parents for the rest of the Occult Research Club to come over after school as their meeting room is undergoing spring cleaning. Back at school, Motohama and Matsuda grill Issei about the rumors of him having a harem and doing sussy things with them, having the audacity to not bring them along. Suddenly, Kiryu interrupts them and tells Asha that she shouldn't be going after someone like Issei. Randomly, Issei's dragon arm awakens, forcing him to see Akino, where she explains that she must suck everything out of her fingers to help him, due to his dragon arm's spirit being stronger than expected. With her personalities and sadistic nature out in display, she proceeds to tell him that Rias will get mad if she does anything more with him. Later, during the club meeting, the group goes over their contract numbers, where Issei ends the month with 0 completed, where he's warned that he will never become a high-ranking devil with those numbers. Meanwhile, Keith becomes disturbed when he notices that a photo had a holy sword in the background. Nevertheless, Issei attempts another mission to gain a contract with a new client, which he finally successfully completes. Afterwards, Issei and the gang receive an order to hunt down a stray devil at an abandoned factory. The team manages to defeat the stray devil, albeit with some difficulties due to Kiba not paying his full attention to the fight. When questioned by Rias if something is wrong, Kiba brushes it off as nothing and leaves soon after. However, when Issei follows in pursuit, worried about him, Kiba reveals to him that his very purpose of living is to seek revenge against the holy sword Excalibur. As such, back in his house, Issei questions Rias about the holy sword and its relation with Kiba's strange behavior. Rias then recounts Kiba's past and tells Issei that he was once part of a project called the Holy Sword Project, of which he was the sole survivor. Kiba, on his way back, witnesses a priest being destroyed by Fried Selzen, and is further enraged when he sees that Fried is in the possession of one of the 7 Excalibur swords, leading to a battle between the two. Meanwhile, 2 unknown individuals are shown arriving in town. As Kiba continues to battle Freed, he finds out that Freed is actually using one of the real Excalibur fragments, where he manages to hold him off until Freed throws a flash bomb and retreats from the fight. The next morning, Issei wakes up greatly surprised that not only Riaz is sleeping alongside him in her birthday suit, but Asha has joined as well. He then thinks about making a move on Riaz, but realizes that Asha will most likely get mad. Regardless, as he continues to daydream about the love triangle, Drake, the dragon residing in his sacred gear, suddenly starts talking to him and warns him about the vanishing dragon named Albion. Drake then explains that he will have to fight Albion one day, but Issei accepts his fate and proclaims that he will one day become a high-level devil and harem king in return. Back at the academy, Sona and Tsubaki witness two hooded figures standing outside the school gates, where Sona notices that one of them is wielding a holy sword. Meanwhile, Kiryu appears out of nowhere to tease the boys, but she ends up inviting herself and Asha to karaoke with them. Later, at the occult research club room, Issei notices that Kiba is missing and questions Riaz about Kiba's past. Riaz then reveals that Kiba was previously a part of the Holy Sword Project, where he, being one of the failed products, had managed to escape before he could be disposed of before being found by her on the verge of his demise. Akeno then arrives at the club room with Sona and Tsubaki and Tao, as Soma asks for Riaz to discuss the two people that she earlier encountered. Afterwards, as Issei and Asha head home, they sense that something is amiss at the house, causing them to rush there, only to find two strange girls talking with his mother, one of whom is actually his childhood friend, Arina Shido. Regardless, Issei heads back to his last client from the previous day to fully complete his pact. The next day, Xenovia and Arina arrive at the Occult Research Club, where they inform Riaz and the gang about their purpose being in the town, which is to actually retrieve the stolen Excalibur swords, but they also issue them a warning not to interfere with their work. Upon leaving, Xenovia notices Asha, who was previously known as the Holy Maiden before her excommunication as a witch, and berates her for becoming a devil. Seeing Xenovia further insult Asha, even going as far as to attempt an exorcism on her, Issei intervenes and challenges the girls to a fight, with Kiba joining his lead. As such, the four begin to prepare for battle. The fight quickly begins, where Issei faces off against Arina while Xenovia battles Kiba. Issei then thinks about using his signature move, but Arina is warned that Issei can easily blow away her clothes. On the other hand, Kiba begins dual wielding, but his swords disintegrate from a single hit of Xenovia's Excalibur of Destruction. Issei then attempts dress break on Arina, but he accidentally misses and gets dealt with by Kaneko. However, Issei suddenly falls to his knees while Kiba simultaneously loses to Xenovia as well. After their defeat, Xenovia reveals to Riaz that the one who has stolen the Excalibur swords is a fallen angel named Kokobile, leader of the Grigorus. Kiba then informs the two exorcists that Freed is involved with the fallen angels as well, but is only met with a warning to not get involved. Back at the Occult Research Club, Kiba storms out of the building, still extremely frustrated over his loss to Xenovia. The next day, Matsuda and Motohama are overjoyed with Asha confirming that she's coming to karaoke, but Issei is seemingly occupied. After finally deciding that he's going to assist Kiba in his endeavor of seeking revenge against the Excalibur swords, he coerces Saji into his plans with Kaneko's help. As such, the trio venture off to find both Arina and Xenovia, where the trio encounter the two begging for money on the streets. They take the two to dinner, where Issei explains that they want to help them with destroying Excalibur. Xenovia agrees, telling Arina that it would be quite difficult to retrieve all three swords on their own. Now teamed up, the group descend upon Kiba, where Xenovia reveals that the Archbishop of Annihilation, the man behind the Holy Sword Project, has been branded as a heretic and excommunicated by the Church. Shortly after the two exorcists leave, Kiba thanks them and recalls the experiences he had to endure under the Holy Sword Project, where he was stripped of freedoms and treated as trash. Unfortunately, the experiment was a failure, so they had to be disposed off to hide what has occurred. As he escaped and on the verge of dying, Riaz appeared and took him under the banner of House Gremory. Back in the present, Asha appears to cheer up Issei with a nurse outfit, explaining that Kiryu told her that he would feel better if she showed up as so. Later that night, Issei meets up with Kiba and the others, starting their plan to destroy the Excaliburs. Meanwhile, a mysterious young man appears beside Issei's client. As Issei and the others start their operation to search for Freed and the remaining Excalibur fragments, they discover that Freed is lurking around an abandoned warehouse, which was previously used by the stray devil named Visor. Kiba then engages Freed in one-on-one combat until Issei, Saji, and Kaneko intervene, giving them a numerical advantage. However, before they can finish off Freed for good, an elderly man suddenly appears, introducing himself as Valper Galilei. With some advice from Valper, Freed manages to get better control of his Excalibur. thus causing the tides of war to reverse. However, before he can overpower Kiba and the group, a timely arrival of Sinovia and Arena foils Freed's plans and saves them. Valper, realizing that the situation is quickly escalating, suggests that they should escape, which they then do after Freed successfully uses his flash bomb. Kiba, Sinovia, and Arena then chase after the two as the others arrive at the scene. Meanwhile, Issei and Saji are punished with 1,000 spankings for taking action without seeking permission. Back at the Huda residence, seeing Asha greet both her and Issei, Riaz decides to accept the sussy challenge. The next day, when Riaz, Akino, and Kaneko dispatch their familiars throughout the city in order to search for missing Trio, they find an injured Arena lying outside the town's outskirts. After healing her with Asha's help, Tsubaki takes Arena to the Citri residence for further treatment. Freed once again appears, this time revealing that he now has the possession of all 4 Excalibur swords, ever since he had stolen Arena's Excalibur mimic. He then introduces his boss, Kokabeel, one of the leaders of the Fallen Angels. Kokabeel then reveals his true motive behind stealing the Excaliburs, which is to ignite another great war amongst the 3 factions. Disappointed that Michael only sent grunt exorcists to stop him, Kokabeel decides to target the devils of Kuo Academy in order to force the hand of the 4 Satans. After the Fallen Angel leader uses a small attack as a diversion, Issei and the others head back to the school to prepare for their upcoming battle with Kokabeel. Meanwhile, at the academy, Valper and Freed are shown to be inside a magic circle, undergoing an unknown ceremony, as Kiba and Sinovia overlook the situation from afar. With the battle looming closer, Sona and her team create a powerful magical barrier to surround Kuo Academy, while Arena, Sinovia, and Kiba are still missing from action. With the massive danger on the horizon, Akeno reveals that she contacted Lucifer, the Devil King himself, for assistance against the Fallen Angel leader. As such, the group heads on forward where Issei is moved to a support role, so he can transfer his promotion powers to others within the squad. Upon reaching the courtyard of the school, Kokabeel reveals that the Excalibur fragments are going to be forged into one, allowing supreme magical powers to form within it. As he toys with the group, Kokabeel summons the Watchdog of Hades to take care of the Gremoray team. During the battle, both Riaz and Akino transform into their devil forms to launch a counter-offensive with Kaneko, while Issei attempts to boost their powers. Suddenly, Xenovia appears out of nowhere to save Issei, and she easily defeats one of the Cerberus demons in a single blow, until Issei finally is able to fully boost the girls. As such, Kiba also comes out of the shadows and protects Asha, while Akino blasts away the last of the Watchdogs. However, during the entire ordeal, Valper succeeds in combining the 4 Excalibur fragments into one, allowing Kokabeel to gain massive power. With his own style of Rasengan, he lands a direct hit on Akino and Riaz, causing Akino to fall from the sky. Meanwhile, Kiba charges towards Valper, but is easily dispatched due to him being hellbent on getting revenge on Valper. Freed then picks up Excalibur to commence battle against a very flexible Xenovia, where he uses shadow clones against her only to be dealt with after forgetting about Kaneko and Issei. Meanwhile, a battered Kiba confronts Valper, learning the truth of the Holy Sword project, and with the help of his friends from both the past and present, Kiba successfully manages to attain his balance breaker of the Sword of Betrayer. Kiba, using his newfound powers in tandem with Xenovia, who had summoned her Durandal, manages to successfully destroy the fused Excalibur. With Freed and the Excalibur out of the equation, Kiba then attempts to vanquish Valper only for Kokabeel to deal a final blow. Now apparently bored with distractions, Kokabeel taunts Issei to boost as much as he can and to transfer his power, so with hands clasped together, he does so with Riaz. As Issei continues to power up alongside Riaz, he finally transfers his boosted powers to her, much to the excitement of Kokabeel. She then unleashes a massive magical attack to no avail. Akino then also tries to attack Kokabeel with her lightning powers, but he realizes that Akino is the daughter of the fallen angel leader Barakil, so Kokabeel makes fun of Riaz, claiming that she has the same habit of taking in weird people, very much like her brother. Angered by Kokabeel's insults, Issei decides to take on Kokabeel himself, where he calls Issei stupid. Nevertheless, Xenovia, Kiba, and Kaneko begin attacking Kokabeel to buy time for Issei to boost his powers. However, despite the combined effort of all three, they still can't manage to inflict any significant damage on Kokabeel. Suddenly, in the midst of battle, Kokabeel proceeds to reveal that during the Great War of the past, both God and the 4 original Great Devil Kings actually perish in battle, much to the surprise of everyone in the present, especially Asha and Xenovia, who were shocked by the revelation. Despite the leaders of the three factions hiding the truth, Issei strongly states his dream of becoming a harem king no matter what, and along with Ria's sussy body incentive, Issei manages to rekindle his friend's fighting spirit by attacking Kokobile powered by sussy thoughts and passion. However, before the fight could continue, the barrier field surrounding the school ground is destroyed as a new figure descends from the sky. Naming himself as the White Dragon Emperor Albion, the newcomer then proceeds to defeat Kokobile, tearing off his wings before negating the self-destruct spell that was previously cast on the school. He then collects Kokobile and freed from the school ground and leaves with them in order to make them, especially Kokobile, answer for their crimes. Glad that the battle is over, Sona and her team proceed to fix up the school while Kiba, having truly managed to get over his past with the help of his friends, swears fealty to best girl Rias once more, vowing to serve her alongside her other servants. The next day, both Issei and Asha are surprised to see Xenovia appearing in the Occult Research Club, wearing a cool academy uniform. Xenovia then reveals that after learning about God's death, she reincarnated into a devil as Rias' knight and thus apologizes to Asha for her earlier rude remarks about the latter's past. Later, as Issei plays a video game with his client, who at the end reveals himself as the fallen angel's governor, Azazel, much to Issei's surprise. As Azazel continues to reveal his identity to Issei, he remarks that he infiltrated the town after getting wind of Kokobile's plans, and since he couldn't get directly involved, he sent an Albion to deal with him. He also tells him that the leaders of the three factions had decided to hold a summit, so Issei informs the Occult Research Club of the newfound information. The next day, the gang meets up with Xenovia, where the Occult Research Club is tasked with cleaning out the pool. Out of nowhere, Kiba announces to Issei that he will protect him no matter what, but his sussy speech alone in the changing room causes Issei to run out. Afterwards, Issei's dragon arm starts acting up again, forcing Akino to do some while the rest cleans up the pool. As Akino does the she starts baiting him and asks Issei to keep a secret. Unfortunately, Rias ruins the moment. After punishing him, a jealous Rias leaves the two, whereby the annual anime swimsuit episode commences. Rias then asks if he likes her swimsuit, but Akino interrupts her while Asha appears as well, much to the delight of Issei. Later, Issei begins teaching Koneko how to swim while both Rias and Akino begin competing with each other. As such, Issei pulls a big brain move to zoom in on the two, before having to teach Asha to swim as well. Rias then attempts to bait Issei by ordering him to apply sunscreen on her back, resulting in a battle between Akino and Rias. Sauce is episode 7 season 2 for the cultured people. Regardless, after running away from the pool, Issei encounters Xenovia, who reveals she wanted to have a serious discussion with him. She then brings him into a room and says she has finally decided to have a womanly dream, which is to have a baby, but she wants her child to have his unique and strong genes. However, Rias and Akino arrive, where Akino states that she will be the one taking his first. Back at the Occult Research Club, Surzex and Grafia arrive at the club room to greet Rias and her peerage, revealing that he was there for Rias' class observation day, and he's here to investigate the area that will be used as the place for the meeting of the three factions. As such, Surzex and Grafia then head off to the Hugh residence to greet Issei's parents, where Surzex agrees to spend the night in Issei's room. The next day, Rias leaves the Hugh residence earlier to guide Surzex and Grafia, while Asha goes to Xenovia's apartment, leaving Issei to walk alone to the school, where Issei encounters a young man who names himself as Valley, the White Dragon Emperor. As Valley proceeds to approach Issei, his dragon arm acts up again, but Valley is stopped by Kiba and Xenovia. Upon this, Valley rebukes them by claiming that if they can't beat the likes of Kokobile, then they would stand no chance against him. Valley, after asking Issei about what rank does he think he's at, replies that he must be in a 4-digit range when it comes to strength, due to his incomplete balance breaker. Valley then tells Rias to nurture Issei properly and leaves after saying he's a busy person. Now resting in the sick room after meeting Valley, Dre begins talking to Issei and compares Valley's complete form, but Issei asks about his relationship with Albion. Dre then explains how the Heavenly Dragons didn't pick a side during the Great War, but two dragons began a fight, causing the three factions to team up against them. In the end, the two dragons were sealed within humans as sacred gears, thus explaining the history of the two. Back in his classroom, Issei is once again put into a comical situation due to Xenovia's lack of common sense with rubber protection, making him run away from the classroom. Afterwards, he runs into Rias and Akino talking with Sona and Tsubaki, discussing their meeting with Valley earlier and their concern about the upcoming class observation. On the day of the class observation, after finishing his class, Issei meets up with Rias and Akino until they hear about someone cosplaying in the gymnasium. Heading there, Issei meets Seraphal Leviathan, Sona's older sister and the current Satan with the title of Leviathan. Back at the Hudu residence, Issei's father, Riaz's father, and Surzex are seen enjoying the videos that they took during the class observation, causing Riaz to run away in embarrassment, especially after Surzex's comment. Issei then follows Riaz, and the two share another intimate moment until Asha opens the door and says that Riaz is not being fair. As such, Riaz replies that the one thing that she learned from Akino is to be aggressive in romantic pursuits, making Asha reply that she will just have to take him by force if such a need arises. Surzex, however, interrupts and makes them stop fighting and gives Riaz permission to unseal her other bishop. Now having permission to release the seal from Lucifer himself, Riaz and the Occult Research Club unleashes the unknown power behind the door. A scream is then heard as Akino removes a coffin, revealing a sussy boy wearing a female school uniform, whom Riaz introduces as Gasper Vladi, the other powerful bishop under the Grimoire household. Afterwards, Gasper accidentally freezes time when Issei accidentally touches him. As such, Issei learns that Gasper possesses the sacred gear called Forbidden Balor View, which was the main reason for him to be sealed up due to his incapability of controlling the powerful ability. Nevertheless, Riaz, Akino, and Yudo leave to help in the preparation for the meeting of the three factions, thus leaving the others to train Gasper. During the training, Azazel comes to the rescue at the schoolyard where he teaches Saji, Issei, and Gasper how to better control his sacred gear before departing. Afterwards, Issei and the others take Gasper to the gymnasium, but he tries to escape once again and heads to go into seclusion after the training. As such, Riaz arrives to help, and she explains that he was hated by his own kind due to his power, much like Asha's past. Regardless, Issei gets pumped up to help him, so he explains to Gasper that much like himself, he also has great power within him that he doesn't really understand. Eventually, Gasper comes out after being able to relate and begins to be more open with Issei, while also sharing their future goals. Afterwards, Yudo arrives and Issei begins to explain his plan to do sussy things to girls with the help of a time freezer. Suddenly, the girls arrive and Kaneko throws garlic at the vampire while Zenobia places a paper bag on Gasper, somehow completely alleviating his problems with the foolproof plan. The next day, Issei and Asha meets Riaz and Akino, where Riaz tells him to meet up with Akino at her place. Issei then goes to the shrine with Akino, who, while wearing her Miko outfit, greets him. Afterwards, Issei is greeted by a new figure who introduces himself as Michael, the leader of the angels. As Issei meets the leader of the angels, the Archangel Michael, he receives the holy sword called the Dragon Slayer Ascalon. Michael then proceeds to ask him to assimilate it into his boosted gear, since he's the rumored weakest host of all time. Michael then explains that this gift is for him in hopes of joining forces again, as there was only one time in history that made all three factions stop fighting, and that was against his own red dragon. As such, Issei accepts and his sacred gear is transformed, but before he gets a chance to ask Michael a question, he teleports away. Afterwards, Issei asks Akino if she's really a daughter of a fallen angel leader, to which she answers by revealing her half-devil and half-fallen angel wings. Now knowing her true identity, Issei proclaims that he hates fallen angels, but doesn't matter what Akino is since she's still Akino, and he likes her. As such, this results in Issei's deepening of his bonds with Akino, who gives him a lap pillow, and a sussy moment happens, but jealous Riaz interrupts the moment and forces him to leave with her. Issei then leaves with Riaz, heading back to the school to help Gasper with his training. Luckily, Gasper shows great improvement in controlling his powers, which pleases Issei since he can do sussy things with time freezing. However, after accidentally freezing Issei's arm, Gasper gets motivated by a powerful speech from Issei. Later, while Issei is in his room, he contemplates how he should have been more considerate about Akino's feelings while asking about her past. While he's thinking to himself, he hears a knocking on his door. Riaz then enters with Akino following her and explains that due to the meeting and preparations running late, she would be staying overnight at his house. Regardless, as Issei notes that Akino is back to her usual self, Riaz comments on how he said that he liked Akino no matter who she was and no matter where she came from. This led to a friendly fight over who can comfort Issei the most until Asha walks in, realizing that Riaz and Akino have got the upper hand in the battle for Issei's affection. Asha gets upset. The next morning, Issei wakes up feeling heavy, and when he sees Riaz, Asha, and Akino all sleeping with him, he screams. On the day of the conference, Riaz and House Grimoire head to the meeting room, leaving Koneko and Gasper behind. At the meeting, they meet Azazel and Valley, who are representing the fallen angels, Michael, who's representing the angels, and Surzex and Seraphal, who are representing the devils, as the three factions start the meeting. Meanwhile, a group of mysterious people approach Gasper and Koneko, who are standing by at the Occult Research Club room. The mysterious people then reveal they're humans, explaining that they are magicians able to manipulate devil magic, but they are only after the half-vampire Gasper. Kameko then escapes with Gasper, but she gets hit and knocked out, allowing the magicians to capture him. Meanwhile, the meeting between the leaders of the three factions continues, with Michael revealing that God and the Devil King have both been eliminated. Azazel then asks both Issei and Valley for their opinion about the peace treaty, hear how powerful they are as dragon emperors. Valley remarks that he just wants to fight the strong. On the other hand, Issei learns that he can make babies with Rias if there's peace, so he shouts for peace. Afterwards, Issei asks Michael why Asha was excommunicated, so he explains that once God was destroyed, the system now barely functions and they had to excommunicate all those who knew of God's absence. As such, both Zenobia and Asha reveal that they're happy now. Nevertheless, Azazel speaks out about his subordinate who destroyed Asha, so Issei gets angry at him, turning the room tense until the time is suddenly frozen over. Upon looking outside the window, they witness many magicians appear out of a magic circle, who proceeds to bombard the meeting place. They then realize that Gasper must have been kidnapped, causing the balance breaker conditions. Surzex then reveals that if Gasper's powers grows even more, even the leaders will be frozen. As such, Rias plans to rescue Gasper alone, but she borrows Surzex's power, allowing Issei to come along. Meanwhile, Vali starts to battle the magicians outside, annihilating them all with utmost ease. Rias and Issei, by using Rias' unused rook piece, then transfer to the old school building through castling. Before leaving, Azazel gives Issei 2 special bracelets to control both his and Gasper's sacred gears. Back with the leaders, a new woman, Kateria Leviathan, appears after Issei and Rias leaves and proceeds to attack the leaders. Azazel, after insulting her, then starts a one-on-one battle with Kateria. With their powers on show, Rias explains that Katlia is a descendant of a former Devil King. Shortly after, Rias orders Issei to promote himself to queen right before they arrive at the room where Gasper and Kameko was being held captive. Meanwhile, Kybex Zenobia and Arena join in on the fight against magicians, while Graphia analyzes the magic circle used by the magicians. Back at the room where Gasper and Kameko is held captive, Rias assures Gasper that she would never abandon him, while Issei quickly lets Gasper drink his blood, allowing Gasper to properly control his powers. Thus, both Kaneko and Gasper is freed from their chains, allowing Issei to finally use Dress Break as the finishing blow. Next, he places the additional bracelet on Gasper, allowing them to head out. The battle between the magicians and the three factions continue as Gasper destroys the transportation circle used by the magicians, and Azazel defeats Kateria after revealing his artificial sacred gear, the Downfall Dragon Spear. Suddenly, Vali attacks Azazel, revealing that he was actually the traitor that betrayed them, as he laments on Issei being his rival. Proposing to destroy Issei's parents to make Issei become an Avenger so that he can become stronger, Issei gets angry and enters his balance breaker. He then proceeds to battle Vali, but his efforts proves to be futile. Now taking the huge risk of taking in the power of the Divine Dividing into his boosted gear, Vali uses his Have Dimension. As such, Azazel purposely says that Vali's ability will make chests smaller, so Issei's power starts increasing drastically to the point where he manages to inflict damage to Vali. Vali then prepares for a counterattack, but a new figure, Big Q, appears, interrupting the fight as he and Vali retreats. After the fight, Issei asks for Michael's permission to allow Asha and Zenobia to pray to God, while Azazel leaves with his men. A few days later, Azazel appears at the Occult Research Club as the new advisor of the club under Surzex's request to help Issei, Yuto, and Gasper master their sacred gears. He also reveals to them that Surzex has ordered for the girls of Rias' peerage to move into the Issei's residence. As the girls move in, Rias decides to ask Surzex to renovate the house.